But be open with your customer as a co-manufacturer. The more they know about your process, remember they're there to protect the brand and also bring you more production time. So it's a win-win. Here we go again. Hello again, PCQIs, and welcome back to our segment, Sourcing the Hunt for Co-Manufacturing and Co-Packer. So this is part 2 of our series. So let's continue. So in this part is for laboratory. So on the lab, if they have an in-house lab, make sure the lab is ISO 17025 certified. And if they are outsourcing it, do get a copy of that certification, right, for or equivalent accreditation of the particular laboratory. And make sure that it is appropriate on the materials or the pathogens or any toxins that they're testing, and or allergen for those micro methods, and on the food form that you are testing for. Not all labs perform the same test, so you're going to want to ask that question. On the hold program, going back to this, it's kind of inserted back this requirement for the food safety hold. What is the SOP for that? And for the daily physical reconciliation procedures, get copies of those or review them. Now on the check weigher, so there is a requirement for the check weigher. Do they have a check weigher in the line? All right. So, and you want to do that, especially for your, finished product. If your product, it's you're basically disclosing a claim on your net weight of so many ounces. So your tare weight on the packaging, the primary liner, as well as your finished product. What does that look like and how do they check it? And if it's in a master pack, obviously that then escalate for so many units. Let's say you're doing 6 per box, what is that total weight? And then does it go to the check weigher to actually make a determination of your net weight? Okay. Equipment requirements on processing line. So that's another one with this hunt. What are the coding capability of the facility? Are they printing on a wrapper, pouch, or on the carton, retail tray, whatever that is? What are they? Do they have those type of coding capability? What format are they going to be using? So you need to know that. Best use by, date, expiry date. What are those declaration? And then as a PCQI, take a look at the film, make sure the ink stays, it's, just not moisture will go away, and things like that, right? Are they pre-printed? So that's kind of an iffy, right? If they're pre-printed already or are they printing on the line? The reason why I made a comment on the iffy on that one, if they're already been pre-printed and they were pre-printed yesterday, obviously today's a different day. Right? Or they made a mistake and they're pre-printed for Monday of next week. We have some issues with that. Okay. If they're using type of films and type of packaging, so you need to have those specifications, for that. And also, this is where you're gonna basically declare as a brand owner at this point with your customer. How you're going to be doing your coding, right? Your lot coding and batch coding, or your general coding on your product, on your units, or if it's on a film or sachet, case packs, cartons, and then your font size requirements. So this is something sometimes people overlook. What is the font size, and then location? Where is it supposed to be? I've seen dietary supplement, it's just printed anywhere in the label. So, for your branding purposes, you don't want to see it right on your logo, or is there a designated area on the back of the label or underneath the cap, or the bottle container and whatnot. So you need to identify those. Okay, so PCQI, the next topic on this one is quality and food safety management system. Are they being reviewed annually or when changes occur? So you're going to want to see some record for that. Do they have documented procedures and practices? Are they printed or are they based on electronic, food safety systems and whatnot? Is the food safety manual easily available for everybody? Like for me, I love SOPs. I really do. And I've commented on this in several videos. That procedures needs to be documented, and it makes it so much easier, PCQIs, when these things are written out, and there's no pointy finger, and basically saying you did it, I was wrong, I meant to say it this way. Write them all out. So are those written out, and are they approved, communicated through training? Are they signed off on it? And they understand those type of process. So your manuals, your food safety or quality manuals, readily available to all relevant staff, right? And I've talked about that in one of my FDA videos, where the SOP should be around you, on you, with you. Normally for me, I like them before you go to the room, and there's a rack there where the SOPs are listed out. So if you're pre-weighing, you got your pre-weighing SOPs, walking in the door and things like that. But that's your own process, that's your own prerogative. But for me, if I'm going to go to your facility, I'm going to go look for those SOPs, okay? And if you need help on SOPs, info@Consultaire Inc., kindly contact us so we can assist you further. All right, facility shall establish a clear management structure, right? The organizational chart. Is the quality department separated from plant management? Does it report to production manager, to the sanitation manager? Are they a separate department that either report to the owners of the company, to the board, to the president, CEO? Is it a totally separate independent entity that has a voice? Okay, so that is very key. Okay, and if you go on the internet and Google these stuff, how QA, QC personnel, were prosecuted, and end up being charged and being sent to jail. You've seen their justification. I was only given the title, but not the power. Okay. Now, for us, PCQI, we need to be careful when you see those things and you make an observation of how that FSQA on site that you're about to work with, and they don't have those type of openness and basically authority to implement food safety requirements. Remember, PCQI's 21 CFR 117. Look it up and put in preventive control qualified individual. You're part of the law, okay? You're part of the Code of Federal Regulation. You have responsibilities, my friend. All right, let's do this. Okay, so the responsibility for the management of activities to ensure food safety, regulatory, and quality are allocated and understood not by the PCQIs, the FSQA, but by all managers, okay? And as well as leads and all of that. And we can talk about those with management commitment and responsibility. Who's supposed to have those? Everybody's supposed to have those, okay? When it comes to food safety, everybody's responsible. Okay, so organizational chart, you're going to take a look at that, right? We've discussed it, how the QA, the QA body is separated from other scrutiny of other departments, that they are independent, okay? Documentation are clearly indicated and responsibilities of the relevant members on the organizational chart are written out. Normally you'll see these on the job description. They have the scope, or their assigned duties, responsibilities, and whatnot. So take a look at those, right? So you don't want to be looking at a job description if you're doing a deep dive audit and it doesn't fit after working with that person, or it doesn't fit their profile, because you work with those folks that that's not my job responsibility, right? So guess what? You're the customer. In this scenario, your company, your firm is the customer. You write the check, so you have to implement the food safety requirements. Okay. All right. Persons that have a specific food safety responsibility within the role. Right. So now we're gonna talk about some roles. For me, I look at critical control points. Who's handling the prerequisite programs for those, right? And they got to be able to demonstrate the understanding of what is expected of them. So when you're working with them, obviously you're going to learn this throughout the process as you're working with the other team that you're going to be incorporated with. And after a while, there's going to be some openness. I love companies like where I go in, and they just open the doors, after all the management and the managers kind of do the quick introduction, the high fives and all of that, and hoorah, hoorah, right? They open up. They say, hey, we need this, or I'll point something out. Oh, by the way, you have this. Do you have this procedure? And they have that nervous look. And I said, no, relax. I'm here to, put things together for you. I'm hired by the company to help out. Okay, I'm not here to just point the finger and expect for you to produce something on the spot. I don't even want you to say anything that you're not supposed to be doing. If it's lacking, just let me know. So just to let you know, some of the things that we do is when I go to the facility, I make a full observation, and then we prepare all of those missing SOPs or programs or procedures for you, along with forms, for best practices. You might not have these forms yet, or you probably have them, and they're incorporated with other forms, and then we would learn that and we can document it. So during our internal audit, we can interlink those to that particular process, and it makes the audit so much easier, you guys, right? But be open with your customer as a co-manufacturer. The more they know about your process, remember, they're there to protect the brand and also bring you more production time. So it's a win-win, okay? So what is expected of them? Okay, let me go back there. Written procedures of the section of the HACCP and food safety plan, of the food safety plan, relevant to their job. So that's also important. If you're looking at the HACCP and you're talking to the PCQI, next section is the facility leadership. Documented reports of objectives and goals quarterly. Reviews of the food safety legislation. You're going to see this now. This probably sounds a little bit the same way if you are a GFSI certified facility. So it asks the same type of questions. Let me see here for the regulatory requirements. Make sure those are squared away. You're gonna, as a PCQI, on this part, you're gonna take a look at the food safety and quality, achieving the overall compliance in their food safety and quality policies. So part of the facility leadership is the internal and external audit results review. Make sure those are reviewed by senior management and signed off by them. Same thing with the complaints review. Make sure there's a review by on those forms that's signed up by authorized personnel on behalf of the management or management themselves. HACCP and food safety plan management review. Now you can also take a look at their validation. So there's a lot of validation format, as for example like HACCP. Or if they are certified, there's the validation under certification, as well as their GMPs, validating those. So the next step on this process is crisis management. So, what are the contingency plan for disruptions? For example, let's say they ran out of water, they ran out of electricity, or the electricity shut down. What are those type of management protocol that they have? What do they have for in case of fire, flood, or natural disaster? What about fraud and economic adulteration plan for the process? So on the crisis management as a PCQI, you're going to want to take a look at those. Okay. Documentation records. Records are reviewed. They're organized. You can easily access them. So these are the type of things that you need to put on your checklist. And there's a lot of records requirement. And then most part of this is make sure they're reviewed, really, and they're very accessible. And all the records on their food safety HACCP, all of their verification and validation activities, for the days or concerning your particular product. And then tamper evident tape or lock storage as well for that. Make sure the records are secured. If they're using digitized records, what are the accessibility for those? Can they be manipulated? 21 CFR 11 for digitizing records. Do they comply with those requirements for the Code of Federal Regulation? Meaning everything is tracked by the system. Who uploaded it? Who made a change? And who deleted it? And things like that. There's other requirements which we'll go over on that other aspect of compliance. Retention policy for their records as well, and retains and things like that. Anything that require records, because some records for accounting purposes that they are kept for 7 years, or depends on the regulatory requirement. But then there are for raw materials records, finished product records. Make sure they abide by that. And then if they're disposing of those records, what are they? What process are they utilizing? Are they just black bagging it, tossing it out? Now it has your information, remember, or do you require them to shred it? Or it's used by a third party, to get them incinerated. What does that look like? It's something that you need to ask for your brand security and trademark for your products. So it says it right there, the purging of records. And let me see. Okay, that's it. Let's just stop right there. Let's go to product dispositions. Same thing, what are kept for traceability and finished goods. Are they destroyed? What happens to those product disposition? Are they donated? Are they squared for animal food? Are they eligible for that or not? You might want to have that process or SOP either written out or ask those questions. And then it goes to the non-conforming product, so there's a segue for that. Now, some of the procedure that you might want to include is for the staff to identify and report potential non-conforming product. What does that look like when they see it? Do they have a reporting structure? Clear identification of non-conforming products, labeling and signage and whatnot, and where are they kept or quarantined so they don't cross-contaminate with your finished product. Holding and secure storage for preventing accidental release. What are those process with QC or QA for releasing those type of products or materials. And then the product disposition when it comes to destruction, reworking, or reprocessing of these type of non-conforming products. And then the decisions, right? So there's certain things that you want to take a look at. The decisions that are being made for these dispositions, are they approved? Are they signed off? Who performed them? Who verified them? Things like that. And of course, you need to have a master listing or a master register that you might want to take a look at of all of these materials that's been disposed of. Do they keep a register for that and their disposition points? All materials that are on hold, what are the validation point when where an issue is presented or not presented? What do those look like on those holds? For example, let's say you have a product on hold and it's either been released or not released, or what happened. So how do you validate those that actually occur? So you have to take a look at that and prepare a checklist or a validation checklist or process for that. Next step is traceability and recall management. Are they performing mock recall and traceability? So those are two different exercises. We'll go over those on a separate video. So work in process, for example, let's say they blended and mixed something today, but they're actually gonna either bake or cook it tomorrow or take it to the next step for tomorrow. What does that traceability look like, and tracking of that material when it goes back off the line and goes back in the line the next day. Next part is traceability. So what does the traceability look like on that exercise? So in this part of it, when you're doing an audit, for your co-manufacturer or co-packing partner, you want to trace your own product, right? So that's one exercise, and depending on the run, you might want to also take a look at a traceability of the next product that's being made, that's maybe part of your system, or it could be a different product, but you're sharing the same product line. So you make sure they don't cross over, all right? So because sometimes, when they're doing the traceability exercise, you can pinpoint certain gap between your process and someone else's cross-contamination on your part. So on the mock recall or traceability exercise, you also want to make sure that they can perform this at any time. What I mean by that is, I know during work hours, right, some companies, they have like a whole committee, they have to get together and do a mock exercise or mock recall, which then they have to wait for certain people to come in because they're not part of that team. Well, if you when and if you have an emergency, you can't wait for that. So, and that could happen after hours, right? So what does that look like? So certain certification body requires a mock recall / traceability exercise during work hours and off hours. But for you, obviously this is your co-manufacturer or co-packing partner. You want to make sure that they can perform it at any time, okay? And that's something you need to communicate with them. Now on the product withdrawal recall, you want to make sure that you have a provision for waste, rework, or work in progress for that. So if you are developing a traceability or recall program, you want to be able to recall all those materials. Where did they go, right? Because a lot, some processor, they just go by weight. So if they're going by weight, meaning like all of these, process loss materials, they just weigh them at the end of the day and put them in a bin somewhere, and you want to get that, and you want to capture that data, and then cross-check it with the gross weight of your materials, make sure everything is fully accounted for. Now on the recall, you want to administer this exercise at a minimum annually. I know on the traceability we kind of have two, during work hours and off hours, but on the recall a minimum of on an annual basis. And also if you are doing an on-site audit and you're doing it yourself, obviously you're going to want that performed with your product. So on your recall, when you're looking at the recall forms, you're going to want to have some minimums that you can add. Here's some of the things that I've seen. Obviously your basic information for your product name, the SKU number, sometimes it could be a GTIN, a UPC code, whichever number you chose or agreed to use, the PO number, the stock transaction order number, lot number, quantities, okay, from your cartons, bags, units, whatever, the quantity for that. The customer's full name and shipping address. So obviously, you're their customer, but you might be shipping it to your own customer, because remember, they're your co-man and co-packer, so it's going to go somewhere else. So you want to be able to track that. The date it was shipped, the shipping destination, the trace information required, meaning how many units per those stops, and did they total out. And then the amount received. If you received it yourself, you want to be able to add that as well. And we did mention lot number and batch number code. All right. The next step of this process is food protection. So on this one, it's you have food defense. So now we're looking at food protection. So the security of the process for the food, for basically for protecting it from malicious contamination by personnel or by the facility. Could be also from theft. Obviously, sometimes that happen. What does that look like? Security arrangement with the co-manufacturer. Are they taking your product and they're secured in your own warehouse? So depending on your volume, obviously, and warehousing situation, do they have sensitive or restricted area? Get those defined and written out. Now, some process everything. They have electronic entry points, CCTVs, and things like that. But pay attention to the product protection part of that. And then authorized personnel that have access to production and storage areas. What does that look like, for you? Especially sometimes I go to when I go to a co-manufacturer, they're producing product from a direct competitor. So, I've seen that where you have a product that's on the market and then you have a B product that directly competes, and they actually make it together. Now, in this example, B person had actually hired a QA person when they're running their product, and the A brand does not. So the A brand is exposed because the B person is walking around and they can see everything. If that's important to you, then you need to address that concern as part of your food protection. And then next part of this is access to the sites by employees, contractors, and visitors shall be controlled. So what does that look like? Those entry points and exit points. And then visitor reporting system, make sure they have those. I've seen them as they take the facial recognition software. Those are pretty cool. I've been to a plant facility where I actually have to take my driver's license or a government ID, and it takes a picture of it as well as me, and then I put some keywords on there that only I can access. So when I'm in the facility, it asks me for those particular words, and it automatically knows it's me. And then I've been to a facility. Well, they have facial recognition, and you go in, it automatically says "Welcome, Arnel," right? And I've seen it as it's just a clipboard. Right, and a person is signing you in and giving you a tag, and you're being escorted, and as simple as that. So whatever that process is, make sure it's documented and they are implemented. And also, when you're there, make sure the visitor log in and out. Take a look at that, because sometimes people just kind of do this, and there's so many empty spaces. That's a concern. Did that person leave already? Especially if the facility is making your competitor's product. You're competing with them and you're using the same space. And like I said, if that is important to you, then you might want to take a look at that and take that seriously. Okay. Access to computer systems, critical data systems, concerning your product, especially your formulation and recipe. I always tell our client, there's always 3 types of formulation: the one that's on the label that's open to the public, and then you have your formulation declaration, and then you have your the nitty gritty, how to mix things. 1, 7, and 10 ingredient goes in one, and then the other ingredient goes on to the other. So those are, for me, the third part of that is the most important part of that chemistry, and that needs to be secured for the vulnerability of my formulation, and obviously to protect my mixing instruction for that. And then food fraud and food defense programs are complied with, right? If you take some of the food defense online courses from the FDA website, they're free. I'm gonna look for them and put them on the description, so bear with me if they're not on there yet. And they're very good. They're very, very good. And I think it's something that you as a PCQI need to take a look at that, and also disseminate with your team. Or if you're a brand owner, take a look at those. It's a eye opener, and it's been funded and prepared by FDA about food defense and food fraud and whatnot. Okay, I'm gonna stop at this point and end this part here, and I'll continue on the next one. Contact us, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks again, PCQIs.